Welcome to episode 253 of Silver Lining for Learning. My name is Punya Mishra. I am at Arizona State University. With me are my co-hosts Chris Dede from Harvard, Kurt Bong from Indiana, back from his 1958th run. We don't know, we've lost count. He seems to keep count of it. Lydia
More.
Cow, yes, more. Okay. Lydia Cow and Zhao are traveling, so they will not be able to join us today. I'm very excited about our episode today, where we are going to speaking about education in Afghanistan. We have had previous episodes. If we go back, I looked this up. We had episode 140 about women in Afghanistan who are in Bangladesh, and and seeking their education there and the work that they're doing. Then we have had episode 151, 195, and 232, in each case, in different ways of thinking about making education accessible to girls in Afghanistan, which, as we know, is a tragedy of epic proportions, to the denial of education to 50% of the population. One thing I have to say is, in all our conversations, and we have had a couple of young women from Afghanistan join us in the Bangladesh episode, another episode. What has really stood out in each of those is their courage, their just hunger to learn. And I remember in one of the episodes, I think I made a little comment saying that, when those of us who work in the US with students here, and we're like, oh, students are disengaged, they are not sort of engaging, that is the last word that you would use for these young women. They know what they're missing, and they are starving and hungry for it. And so I'm really excited to have as guest today Nasir Kaihan, who is a PhD student in education policy and evaluation here in my college, and which is how I got to know about this project. And I'm really glad that he could join us. Joining him are also Laura Payne, who is at Smart Schools International as an academic manager, and Ginger Smith, who is a marriage and family therapist who has been working in sort of the social emotional support of these students. Um, this foundation is pretty new, and in fact, when I introduced this episode last week, I said that one of the things that we try to do at Silver Lining is showcase these amazing pockets of innovation, of courage, and integrity across the world. Sometimes we talk to people who have been doing this for decades, and sometimes we talk to people like yourself who have stepped into this in the last couple of years, but the commitment, the passion stays the same. So welcome, Nasir, Laura, and Ginger to Silver Lining.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off, Nasir, with you, asking you to just introduce yourself briefly, what you do, how this came to be, and then pass it to Laura and Ginger. Then we'll have some questions about the overall project. So right now, just give us a little introduction to yourself.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm very honored and humbled to find myself among all of you. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Nasir Kaihan. I am originally from Afghanistan. I'm a PhD student here at Arizona State University's Meredith-Fulton Teachers College. I have been working in implementing different programs in education focused on women and girls in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Mexico for the last 12 years. My story originated from an accelerated learning center that I established in Afghanistan in 2007. And its goal was to put girls back into school after a long period of ban on girls' education with the Taliban regime in the 90s. So those accelerated learning centers would bring in the girls, teach them core science subjects, readings, and mathematics, and then put them on track to go back to school and continue their education. I had that school running up until, well, sorry, I will take my word back. So I started that in 2004 when I graduated from high school, and then it continued until 2007 when I got into college. In college, I continued to do teacher education focused on English language. So I was trained to be an English teacher, and then I joined USAID project in Afghanistan with the higher education sector, and our goal was to support the higher education and revitalize it after a period of inactivity with the Taliban in the 90s. And then I joined UNESCO. I work for the American University of Afghanistan. All my life has been spent and invested in education and educating the women and girls in Afghanistan. Later in 2018, right after I returned to Afghanistan with my Fulbright, I established 8 libraries in different girls' schools across the country to support the education of women and girls, which was a whole different experience. That's when I got connected to a lot of girls with an educational leadership master's degree and understood their problems in depth. So I talked to these girls. I heard about their aspirations and dreams, and I was yearning and working day and night to help and support them continue learning. That's a little bit about me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nasir. Laura?
No, my name is Laura Payne. I am, as Nasir said, I'm humbled. After I just heard everything that he's done, I don't even know how I can compare to where he is at in this world. But I've been working in education for about 20 years. All of it has been in online education. So is one of those things where we are bringing education to people who may not be able to obtain it otherwise. The Afghan project was brought to me a little over a year ago, and I was super excited, but at the same time scared to embark on this journey because it was something that, obviously I've known about and I've heard about, and I find it deplorable that people can be denied education in any right. But when Nasir brought us the package of what he was doing, I was like, okay, let's see what we can do here. And I could immediately say that I was transformed by all of the girls. They are amazing individuals, and they honestly bring a light to my day every single day.
Thank you, Laura. Ginger?
My name is Ginger Smith, and I am a marriage and family therapist, and I echo what Laura says. I'm incredibly humbled to be a part of this after listening to both of their backgrounds. I received my master's degree in marriage and family at Indiana Wesleyan University, and a few years after, we relocated to Owensboro, Kentucky, and I worked for a nonprofit where I was given the opportunity to go to Thailand and to train some house parents who were working with families who had adopted girls that had been trafficked and rescued. And it was in that work that I understood the role that Owensboro, Kentucky was playing in resettling refugees. And so it took me about 10 minutes when I got home to figure out how to get plugged into that, and did some work. The University of Louisville provided some curriculum in Kentucky Refugee Office, and I did some curriculum and ran some groups with families and with kids and with teenagers on emotional wellness. So I was introduced to Nasir through a mutual friend, said that he was looking for some mental health support for these girls. And it took me about 5 seconds to say, pick me, I would love to. So I am here learning lots as I go through, but with lots of willing heart and passion.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it just blows me away every time when we talk to our guests we get on the show, the different journeys that we each have, but the commitments and the passions that just sort of bring us together. So that's awesome. So, Nasir, maybe, when we had talked last time before when we were planning the episode, you had told me sort of the story of how this foundation came to be, and then how you reached out to smart schools and, formed this partnership. And then so maybe you can start us on that, and Laura, you can sort of build on like when you guys came into it. And what I've really been impressed by the work that Ali Khan Foundation is doing, that you're not just looking at education. You have people like Ginger on board. You have sort of a one-on-one sort of mentorship situations that you have created for these girls. So Ginger, maybe you can speak to that. So we'll sort of get a narrative story of how this foundation came to be and the work that you're doing now. And after that, we'll open it up to questions from Chris and Kurt.
It was interesting to hear that that silver lining, the podcast, came about to be what it is right now when COVID hit. And this story of this foundation, the Alcan Foundation, also connects back right there. So in 2021, when the COVID restrictions were easing and people were going to work, people were gathering at different public spaces. Girls and boys would start to go back to universities and schools. That is when we saw a different transition that came about in Afghanistan, which was the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan and Taliban's takeover of the country. Afghanistan fell to the Taliban on August 15, 2021, and then right after they returned to power, they banned schools for girls and boys right away. And then early in September, 2 weeks later after their takeover, boys were allowed to go to school, girls were not allowed to go to school across all levels, meaning primary, secondary, and higher education. But then as they started to rule the country, they allowed girls at the primary levels to go to school. University level girls were going to their classes, but then secondary level girls all remained at home, and the school's doors were closed to them. And then this pattern continued, but then the academic year in Afghanistan ends in December 15, and then the next academic year starts on March 21st. Up until between December 15 and March 21st, different international actors were negotiating, and girls and women were asking and begging for their rights at times and fighting for their rights, more importantly, for the government to start secondary schools for girls and women. But in March, every indication were there that girls at the secondary levels would be allowed to go to school, but right on the day when they went to school, the Emir of the Taliban announced that girls are not allowed to go to school at the secondary levels, and then university will also remain close to the women, and only girls at the primary levels can go back to school. And then other decrees came in as things evolved, which banned girls from going to private schools, private tutoring centers, a lot of English language training centers, and then science and mathematics learning centers all got closed to girls and women. So we currently have a government that's only allowing girls to go to school at primary levels. And it was in 2022. So 2022, fast forward to 2024, I looked all around and I did a research with another co-investigator of mine out of Boston to learn what is happening in this space. Up until date, we have 120 actors that are formally providing some form of learning and education to girls and women in Afghanistan. Our research showed that almost none of these programs, except 2 at the time, are providing these girls and women with an accredited schooling. I was one person. I was a PhD student, and then in 2023, I became a full-time employee of ASU as well. So I could not start another school, but my passion was to help. My heart was racing to help. So I couldn't do anything. But in June 2024, I heard through an African refugee woman who is resettled here in Arizona that there is a school operational in Gilbert, Arizona, that are providing online asynchronous schooling for non-traditional students, meaning people who have dropped out of schools for any reason at any point in their life. And I said, okay, so this is a good idea. Let me write to these people. So I wrote to Brenda, the director of international expansion at Smart Schools International, and I explained to her the situation in Afghanistan, and I told her if she can help. Brenda was very kind and very quick to write back to me and tell me that they're at least supporting at least one student from Afghanistan at this school right now. And I said, okay, so you have a case study. When are you able to meet me? So she wrote back to me we set a time to meet. I went to their office to see the physical space and if everything is in place there. So I went to their office in this beautiful building in the city of Gilbert, and she sat on the other side of the table, me on this side of the table, and I told her, this is the situation. You know it better than I do because you have at least one student there. How can you help? And she was very straightforward to tell me, we could offer help, but my condition is if you could provide these girls a computer and internet, because we know that access to technology in Afghanistan is among the lowest in the world. And I said, okay, so I can commit to that, but how can you commit? What numbers can you give me? And she was kind to tell me that she would offer 4 seats for 4 of our students if we referred them. And then I said, that's too less. We're talking 4 million girls. Before the Taliban took over, UNICEF said there were 1.5 million girls out of school. And then UNESCO officially reported that 2.5 million girls were added to that. So that makes a 4 million girls out of school. 4 seats are too less. And she was kind to do it 6. And then I said, 6 is also not enough. Let's do more. Laura said 10. Brenda said 10. And I said, okay, sure. Now it's time that I will go and do something for this to happen. I came back home. My wife and I thought about it. I asked my wife to give it a name, and she said Alakain. Alakain is the oil-based lantern that we still use in central Afghanistan to light our houses and spaces. And I said, this is a perfect name because education is enlightening. So we're helping light up Afghanistan with giving the power of education into the hands of the girls. So, and then I am blessed to have people like all of you around myself. And I quickly thought, well, wait, my landlady is a lawyer. Why don't I just ask her for counsel on how to establish a nonprofit organization in Arizona? And I wrote to her that moment in the night. She gave me her time in the morning. I went to her office. She quickly got her legal aid to help me with the incorporation. We got started with everything. We did the website. The incorporation in Arizona happened in July 31st, and that's when we got started. But IRS would take a little time to recognize us as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. But as a person, I am a very restless person. I wrote to IRS several times. I faxed them. I called them. I basically annoyed them and got a nonprofit status within 2 months. That would take 6 months. In October, we launched officially everything on social media, our website, everything was running. In a matter of weeks, we raised close to $50,000, and I got all the confidence to do it. And then I wrote to other partners and colleagues and friends globally and asked them to come together and help me with all of this. And we got a board of directors with the very varied skills and experiences, all connected professionally and emotionally to Afghanistan and our people. And then we signed the MOU with Smart Schools International and made it official. We announced the program in November. The application was open only for 2 weeks. It traveled through word of mouth. We got 830 applications, and then age wasn't a requirement for us, filtered by age, give them the English test because Smart Schools is an English medium American school. After the English test, we were left with 300 students, and then we did a thorough application review. We selected 67 students. When my board interviewed these girls, they all got excited. They said, Nasir, we are committed to do 10. Can we do something to increase the number? And I said, sure. So we had enough money to support 29 students, and that's how we ended to supporting 29 students. Each girl is paired with an American female college student as their mentor who are supporting them personally and emotionally. It's as easy as an American girl going to Walmart or Trader Joe's and showing them an American factory store, or talking basically about the pop music or what to wear in their friend's wedding. It's very personal. It's very uplifting to our students who are in Afghanistan under the most oppressive regime on the entire planet. And then we're thinking, okay, so these girls are having these mentors, but can we have support from a mental health practitioner who is licensed into this, who would support us? And that's when we called on Ginger and Sarah, her colleague, to join us and support these girls. Our goal is to support our students get into higher education, continue their higher education and to whatever level that they want, be it a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD. But we are committed to help them. And our strategic plan for the next 3 years between 2026 and 2029 is to support 30 girls annually and ensure 85% of them gets into colleges globally. That is a very lengthy introduction of the organization and what we do. And I hand it over to Laura.
If I can just jump in 1 second, I remember when I first talked with you, Nasir, two things really stood out, and I've had those words written down. One is initiative, and another is stubbornness. Like the persistence. I mean, that really stood out. Like, you're meeting somebody and you're like, okay, we can give four. No, we need more. And then that really is testimony to you and to the work that you're doing. And I just wanted to underscore that because that really, from our first conversation, stood out and was reiterated here. So, Laura, tell us a little bit about Smart School and how this whole thing works from your end, from the online learning end.
Yeah, so we are a online learning platform. We offer schooling. We are primarily based here in Arizona. We do have a lot of stateside students, but we also have an international side. So we have students attending classes from literally all over the world. I think we're in about 42 countries at this point currently, with people from different walks of life, different goals, different dreams, different accesses to computers, to internet, different understandings. The main aspect for most of these is that their English skills are very, very well because the classes are all taught in English. It seems ironic that the English diploma, the U.S. diploma, is something that they hold in such high esteem when we have so many people here in the U.S. who just struggle to finish a U.S. diploma. And that is honestly what has struck me the most about these Afghan girls is that they came here without having the access to education for 3 years. And yet they arrived with a portfolio in front of them of different projects they've been doing, different science camps they've run, different places they've been teaching people how to speak English, or short stories that they've been writing, and just different things where even though they were stifled for not being able to physically attend the classroom, they were finding ways to learn. And then they started into the program here. And at first they were very uneasy. They were very unsure of what they were doing, but they were all still very, very eager. And that eagerness and the persistence, I think that must have been like a box that Nasir had on his application was, are you as persistent as I am? Because these girls are very persistent with what they're doing, and I love it. I'm here for it. It's amazing to just hear what their dreams are, what their aspirations are. And if we weren't providing them an outlet to get this diploma so they could go on to a university, those dreams would just be dreams, and it would be something that they would never be able to see go into fruition.
Laura, before we go to Ginger, you said we are. Could you tell the audience who's listening who didn't read the blog post? I think you were referring to Smart Schools, right? So you might want to describe for 15 seconds what Smart School is and the history of that for people who are listening later.
Most definitely. So honestly, Smart Schools originally started as a dropout recovery program to students here in Arizona. Our founder and CEO found himself in high school homeless and had to drop out of high school himself. And he went into the education system knowing that it was broken. So he got a GED, got himself through college, and started working in different ventures and different avenues and kept going back to education and opened up the school system here for us with the dropout recovery, knowing that not everyone fits into that box the same way and that we needed something different for students here in Arizona. And then it just slowly grew from that. So we also offer adult high school diplomas as well. So for those students who have hit the age of 22 or above, then we also offer high school diplomas for them. Again, that's all over the nation. But we also have the subsector of the international side where it is offering the U.S. high school diploma. So all of the classes they're learning are all in English. Obviously they're all online. So it does give them the little bit of flexibility for that. But we have our teachers and we do have advisors that work with all of the students to just help them down that path, and not in the same capacity as Ginger or the mentors that Nasir has paired people up with, but we do help them in a lot of different aspects and form those bonds with them, because it's this journey. Schooling is something that at times, especially when you're doing it online, you're on an island and you're having to teach yourself some of the same techniques or learn things you had no idea what they were, but you're doing it on your own by learning the material. So it's a unique program that we actually offer.
So I was just curious because you
Yeah,
didn't
no,
explain it fully, and people who are listening from Asia know everything's smart this, smart that. There's smart conferences, there's three smart journals now. I just got back from smart education, global education in Beijing. So it's good to know in America we have some smartness as well. I had to throw that in there. Should we go over to Ginger?
Yeah, so Ginger, one of the things that struck me when I was reading your bio, and this is often something we don't talk about when we talk about education, is the personal reasons why we get into it. And what was fascinating to me is that, we are talking about Afghanistan, which is a predominantly Muslim nation. You are coming in with a deep faith in Christianity, which I think speaks volumes about the beauty of what you guys are doing. So I would love to hear sort of a little briefly that aspect as well, because often in education we don't know how to talk about these things, and I think those are so critical to making us who we are, why we do what we do. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and then the work that you're doing with these kids?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the difficult parts of my journey, especially regarding my faith, is that simultaneously while I was working in Owensboro with refugees, was also when the political, for me, I think the political angst has been going on for lots, but for me, COVID introduced a great deal of information for me. And while I was working with these, I was also finding myself kind of walking away from some beliefs and things, which is ultimately, one of the reasons, not the only reasons. I have a grandbaby that lives here in Cincinnati, but we relocated. And my husband, who was hired in a church, stepped out of ministry and got hired into a Fidelity, and just a crazy company that would just help, give us a great retirement. So that was my heart when I moved here. And Hannah is the name of the mutual friend. Her and I go way back. When she was a kid, I was a faith mentor for her, and that's how we met. So as far as how that shows up with in this class, as far as these girls being Muslim, it isn't even an issue for me because God is God. And and it honestly, they're lovely. I don't They're lovely. It's just very apparent that our faith and my faith, their faith and my faith, just look so much alike that it just doesn't even come up.
Yeah, I wasn't meaning it in that regard. What actually I found it inspirational at a time when we seem to be so divided,
Yeah.
which is why I brought it up, not to put you on the spot or
No,
think
no,
that
yeah.
that's a division, but that these are things we often don't have ways to talk about, and they're often seen as being polarities rather than things that
Yeah.
bring us together. So thank you for that. Thank
Yeah, absolutely. A
Yeah,
big part of what I walked away from was that divisiveness. That's ultimately, and I could give you a 7-week reason why all of that happened, but I won't.
you. No,
But
thank you.
those were some of the beliefs that I was walking away from, and it was honestly a tremendous faith crisis. And as I get back into the work, the healing that takes place just from the amount of love and passion that comes from all faiths has been, healing.
Wonderful. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
no.
yeah,
Nasir, you were making a
Um,
comment, and then we'll jump to Chris, who is waiting with a question.
yes, I think that's also the beauty of our work, the how diverse our group, our community is. On my board, we have Christians, we have Jewish, and of course, I'm a Muslim, and everybody else that is coming from Afghanistan are Muslims. But I wanted to also point out that myself as a person, I every second of my life, I look into how to find an agent of change in this polarized world who would give you the blessing of a smile or a hello, a very simple hello in every street or every corner of the street that I live in, and that is something I am looking as a person. That's why I made it very diverse. I will give you another example. We have several Jewish people in our board, and one is very connected to Israel. And I asked him, can you look for universities in Israel who would admit our students once they complete their education? You would think with everything that's happening in that part of the world, I would stay back and not look into establishing any such partnership. But I'm looking into it because when people travel, when people connect, when people speak, that is a public exchange, that is a public citizen diplomacy, and that connects the world, and that brings friendship, and that brings peace and love. That's another nation of myself as a person.
Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you. Chris, go ahead, please.
So I want to refocus a little on a different question. Ginger, I'm really happy to hear that you're involved as someone who not only provides social emotional support, but also brings in a family dimension. In one of our prior episodes, I became acquainted with a young woman who contacted me. I'm going to be deliberately very vague about all this, who was very excited because she had succeeded in getting a scholarship offer from a U.S. university. And so she, had the chance. But her parents, in part, I think, because of family and religious reasons, said, well, you can't just go off on your own as a woman. You're going to have to, her brother's going to have to go along. And her brother didn't speak English, had no particular education. I mean, there was just no way probably that her brother even would have gotten a visa, let alone been able to find employment when he was here. And it was just sort of like she hit a stone wall. And
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's an atypical story or if that's part of the puzzle, is that young women might face higher barriers to taking advantage of the international opportunities just because of the whole suite of circumstances that surrounds Afghanistan. I'd just love to get your comments on that and whether you see that situation might improve.
Yeah, I absolutely see that. I have very little. I've had 2 individual contacts with the 29 students. So at this point, Nasir would probably be able to speak more about family involvement, but I would say that from a family systems perspective, it has everything to do. It's maybe the biggest piece in the whole suite of problems, and you can imagine the fear that somebody would have for their daughter to get involved, and ultimately, if I understand correctly, ultimately the goal is that 85% of these girls leave home and go get a college education. So the mama heart in me is like, yeah, that's scary and that's sad, and also that's how change happens, and that's sacrifice. And so, yeah, I see that absolutely changing. I think that they have got to see fruit of the work that is done. And I think that some of the change that has to happen with these families has got to come from a place of trust and support. I couldn't even begin to have a conversation with one of their parents and make any dent in it, even if I have all the credentials and the letters to say that. But Nasir, he can. They trust him. They've spent some time with him, and probably Laura too. So yes, I do have all kinds of hope in the world that that can change, but there's a whole lot of work to be done.
I think I initially, when I started, Chris, Dr. Mishra give me the word stubborn. I said I was restless. But I think something very salient that we do in this program is we do the outreach and we do the application as an organization because I'm very well connected to my people in my country and I know who we're dealing with. So one salient piece of this whole program is that we keep parents involved and engaged and informed as we go through the process. The very first step that the girls start to do the application, that is when we ask for their parents' consent. If the answer is yes, the application will go on. If the answer is no, the application will automatically be aborted. So that is one filter. The second filter is during the interview. We ask the girl to bring her father or mom with them to the interview. The initial 5 minutes will go to the parent, where we ask 2 questions. A, Are you consenting? If the answer is yes, then we ask a follow-up question. The follow-up question is very simple, but very critical to me and our board, which is what? What are your dreams and hopes for your daughter's future? If they can illustrate that, if they can give that in basic words and tell us how independent they would let their daughters be and how successful they want their daughters to be in the future, that is a green signal for us, and that is when we'll admit the girl. But if the answer is vague and if we feel like there is something wrong that might lead to a serious issue later, that is a no for us. We cannot make an investment in somebody who would basically let it go to West. I cannot do that, and our board cannot do that. That's our commitment. And also, you asked about the root causes of all of these. I think that this is this whole ban is the reason why the Taliban are doing this is because they don't want women to be empowered. When women are empowered through education, they can lead successful lives. They would make better decisions for themselves. I cannot tell you because I'm a very novice person in this field, and you're all esteemed scholars. But you tell me the social return on education is huge. They lead healthy lives for themselves, for their families and societies, and that is when the Taliban see the challenge. Because if you let your wife, daughter, sister go to school, you will be challenged at the family level. Simple as that. Of course, there are instances that we have faced when we spoke to girls and telling them, oh, so you're finishing grade 10, let's get you prepared with a portfolio so you can go to apply for colleges. That is when the girls come to me, at least two of them came to me and said, well, my mom is not very comfortable. And I said, okay, so we explained all of this. We told you the theory of change. We told your mom or dad every steps that was involved in this process. We will get you in high school education, we'll get you an accredited diploma recognized globally so that you can go to pursue your higher education outside of Afghanistan. All is spelled during the interviews, and your mom or dad pushes back. That is not telling me something is right. So in the two cases, the very first one was very shocking because we talked to these girls, we admitted her into the program, but then she did not have the right access to the internet in somewhere in Afghanistan, and I cannot tell you the exact location. But then I decided, okay, so this girl is a very bright, determined girl. I want her to be successful. How can I help? And her internet is not working. She had to travel 15 minutes on foot to get to an internet cafe where she would take the classes, and that was too risky. And we could not, our security and risk management protocol does not allow Wi-Fi because the tower would have to go on the top of the roof, and that would attract a lot of attention. So I said, plan C is to get this girl out of the area, the province, so she could go live by herself in another province with better internet connection. The dad said no. And I said, okay, give the phone to your dad so I can talk to him. I told the dad, well, you consented and you said yes to everything that we offered to you and your daughter. Then now you're pushing back against it. And then he couldn't say another word. He decided to take the daughter himself out from that province and bring her to another province 5 days on a bus. There's a story I have not told anyone up until now, but I'm telling you all right now. These are the people we're dealing with. But in the meantime, when you reason, when you justify it, and when you tell them about the outcome and benefit, that is when they buy it. They're serious buyers.
And I ask this because I think this is not a situation that's unique to Afghanistan. And one of the things that we do on Silver Lining for Learning is we ask if you have advice for people who might want to do something similar to what you're doing that's directed towards their own country or their own region. And it sounds like one thing that you might say in response, which makes a lot of sense to me, is get the family involved early, because if it's going to be a problem, you have to know that at the front end. That makes just a lot of sense to me. Kurt, you have something?
Yeah, so let's switch situations again a little bit here. I'm speaking from an educational researcher point of view. So if I was to come and observe your program, maybe do some qualitative research and interviews and so forth, or quantitative research and surveys, and I was to write up a paper and create a table, and that table had in it typical challenges in creating an online school and additional challenges in creating an online school in Afghanistan. What were the couple, you don't have to go into a lot of depth here. I'm just asking for a few things for people who are listening later who might want to recreate or instantiate their own online school. What are the typical barriers that people run into? And then what were the additional barriers that and challenges that you faced? And you've already explained that in the first section of this episode, but just in a summary list of sorts, could you provide that for us? Because they might not realize what they're up against in doing what you've been able to do. There are legal issues, financial issues, psychosocial emotional issues, cultural issues. So just for a minute or two, and then I have a follow-up question to that.
Laura, did you want to jump in, or do you want me to go ahead and?
Yeah, Laura, why don't you start?
Online education it's hard and it's unique because of you have to have internet connections. If you have poor internet, it's not going to work out. But you also have to make sure that you're computer savvy. So if you're not computer savvy, you're going to struggle and you're going to have difficulties doing that. You also have to be someone who's very, very structured, because if you're not structured, you're going to get lost in the aspect that you don't have a timeline that you have to be on class and that you can do things at different paces and you don't have that accountability of showing up to a classroom. So it's really some of those self-starters and self-learners and those people that can autonomously learn are what online education really speaks to. It doesn't mean that it's not something that you can teach them, but it's also you can give them the skills if they believe in themselves. And that's where having that, like you said, the psychosocial, having some of those different aspects in place. If you don't have all of the components in place, they're not going to be successful.
Yeah, for me, Kurt, I will quickly jump in there, but for in the context of Afghanistan, and it could be almost applied to any other emergency context or very impoverished, underdeveloped, if you like that word, context. So we looked into this program as a very holistic one. What do I mean by that? So we have 6 priority areas. We make sure the girl is equipped with enough English language proficiency to continue her education in American high school, which is English medium. A. B, we looked into computer. In Afghanistan, access to internet is 36% of the population. Of those who can use internet on a desktop device is 16, the lowest. So that's why we are purchasing every girl, every of our student, a computer in a line of internet. And then we say, okay, so this is a very self-paced individual learning type of situation, which is good. But how can we find an accountability measure or somebody to keep these girls going? That's why we match them with an American female college student as their accountability buddy and also their personal friend and mentor. And then we looked into it, another piece. So they get this diploma. Where do they go next? And that's when we said, okay, so let's also create a pipeline for a higher education admission so they can go pursue their higher education. And then during the admission, we saw that a lot of girls, I told you, out of 600 students that was filtered by age, we gave the English test. We got only 300 people with a B2 based on a CFR framework who would fulfill the requirement. So we had a 50% drop out at the admission process. And that's when I said, okay, so let's also give these people, the ones who cannot qualify for the next time, which is interview, let's give these people English. That's why we're working with another nonprofit like ourselves, Victory Afghanistan, to provide 60 girls as part of our admission pipeline, English language classes, so they can be ready for the next round of admission. But also the beauty of the smart schools is it's asynchronous, which means there are no live classes. Everything is pre-built in a system, in a learning management system, and ready for the girls to log in and start learning whenever they have better internet connection, whenever they have electricity. In Afghanistan, electricity is another issue, especially during the winter. But also more of broader issues around the environment of it. So the issue around electricity is there, but and that is the beauty of a smart school. Like I said, the asynchronous piece of it. So we looked into all of this and we made sure this is a holistic program and it almost works for every girl that we're introducing to the school.
So quick question. Can people ship computers, equipment, technology, and find its way to those girls in Afghanistan? Does the Taliban cut that off, or how do you? It's not a question I was going to ask, but I mean, I'm curious now when you mentioned it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I'm glad you asked that, Kurt, because Nasir has some
Okay.
story there, I think.
Yeah. So I need to be sure that I don't go that much in depth with our security protocol, but also make sure I'm answering this question. So the way we dealt with it is we found a local partner, which means they are present in Afghanistan, operational in Afghanistan, and they purchase the computers locally. Boys can always purchase computers in the local market, which means they are available and it's not illegal for a store to sell it. That's how we did it. So we purchased the computers locally. It's not hard to buy internet. Like you would log into your AT&T account and purchase 10 GBs of internet for yourself. That piece is easy. The computer hardware pieces was a little difficult. And that's why we found a local partner to purchase the computers locally and then get it to our students on an individual basis. The way we worked that out was we asked our students to identify a third-party location where our partner would go drop the computer and the girl will go to there in the afternoon or the next day to pick it up and go home and start using it.
So my other question, follow up to the first one, is if I was writing this research report and had table 2 in it, and I interviewed the 3 of you about what you expected and what you were surprised has happened so far in the program, what are some of the surprises that you've experienced or seen that you would want me to list in that table? You could talk about your expectations, a couple of them, but I'm more interested in what the surprises have been so far.
Great. I will let Ginger surprise you with the surprises.
I expected that these young women would be traumatized, frozen, a little intimidated to talk about mind-body connections and coping skills. And what I found was that a big majority of what I was teaching them, especially regarding coping skills, they were already doing. We just had an opportunity to talk about it. And so I was so pleasantly surprised by how resilient these girls are. I think another surprise, and I don't know the details of the location. I'm going to talk about it in general because I don't know what's safe and what's unsafe yet. But one day we were in our class and one of the girls, because it's evening time for them, because electricity is unpredictable, because Wi-Fi is unpredictable. Many of the girls, I can't see them. We can only hear them. So we talk in the chat and I'll pose a question or I'll say, as we are leaving, say something to your group members. And one of the girls typed in there that she had just came in and that there was something violent that had happened down the street in her neighborhood. And, that's not that normal here. Obviously, we have a lot of domestic violence and those things, but this particular thing was like, oh, okay. And trying to find that balance of, do we halt the group and give her all the support that somebody would need when, the picture that I have is her completely trying to, breathe through a traumatic event or at least traumatic thoughts or memories. And those girls jumped right on it. Nasir was wonderful at just helping move it forward, and it was beautiful. And it was beautiful. So those are a couple from my perspective that I've been shocked. I'll say one other thing. The girls are so smart, and so they're so good in English, especially as their second language, and communicating with them. They never hang up, with nearly every one of them saying some kind of kind, thankful, and they're just lovely.
Laura.
Honestly, and I was actually just texting with Nasir about this the other day, is that they don't take no for an answer ever. Ever, which I appreciate and love, because you really shouldn't take no for an answer unless it's the absolute. But they strive for 100% in every single class. If they have a 96%, they want to redo assignments so they can get to 100%. It is refreshing to see. At the same time, I'm like, just give yourself some grace. 96 is fantastic. This is in English, and that's not your native language. We're okay with this, and they're not. But the girls just started classes with us in March, so we're now 7, 8 months in. The math's not mathing right now. There's a couple of the girls that have already finished 9th, 10th grade and are in 11th grade work. So they have moved through all of the core subjects, electives, and are already in 11th grade work. And the goal for them was a 2-year program. Some of these girls are like, yeah, well, goals are goals. I'm going to do this in less than a year, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. And I don't know, it's remarkable just to see where they're at. Some of the things that they've faced along the way, and then I wake up to like blessings from them. Literally, I'm giving you my blessing for the day, and just different things like that. And the fact, and Ginger nailed it with resilient. I would expect them to be traumatized. I would expect them to just be kind of closed off, but they are very open, very warm, very welcoming, and just so eager to learn and just be happy people. And I think that is honestly one of the things that surprised me the most. Is I can't see how you can be so happy when you see everything like this every single day. And it's that, to me, is a model.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I will add one more surprise over there, but it was not a surprise to me, because I knew when I was working with these girls between 2018 and in 21, but also during the time when I was learning the Accelerated Learning Center. But it was a surprise to my board. During the interviews in January when we joined the girls, one of my board members asked me if I had given them the questions and the interview questions, and I said no, because I cannot let that happen as an education person. B, that is the integrity of this whole process. How can I give the questions out to students or applicants before they come into the interviews? So English is out there. They speak as fluent as I do, and with all my education and my experience working with the Americans and everybody for years. But also another surprise. This program is a fast track. It's a pretty intensive program. It is a 22 credit, 22-month program. That is, in theory, at least, how it should work, which means a girl would start from grade 9 and finish at grade 12 in 22 months, 4 grades. But like Laura said, we are 8 months into the program, and we see at least 2 girls have finished their grade 10, and 10 of them have completed their grade 9. So in a fast-track intensive English medium school, that's not an easy thing to do. And that is what surprised me. And our girls, our students, are putting on average 23 hours in their classes, 23 hours per week in their classes. That is logged into the learning management system, and I get the weekly report and I see it, and I'm surprised by all of it.
And that's this time that you see logged on. That's not counting time that you might be working on stuff. Computer is off. I mean, you're reading or whatever,
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So we don't have much time left. Do you have any final things that you'd like to say? Maybe quotes that you've heard from one of the girls that you want to relay to us? some people, one of them that might have testimonials from the students, or what's next in the program? Any final comments there?
I wrote a quote down on some notes, and I did not grab that. I am consistently, the one day they cut the Wi-Fi off completely, and it had been a couple of weeks that we're going to look at, that they thought maybe forever at the time. And I said to the girls, use the chat and say and give each other, I want you to give each other the words, so that if you are in bed at night and feeling overwhelmed and hopeless, you can come back to the words that you are saying to each other to help you get through hard moments while we're so disconnected. And I mean, the theme of nearly every one of them is, we are Afghanistan women, we will do this. And I was like, you go, girl. It was amazing. It's an honor to get to be a part of that strength.
Wow.
Yes. Laura.
I was privileged to be a part of the 1-year anniversary meeting that was a couple weeks ago, and being able to see all the girls' faces and hear their voices, because I've heard their voices and seen their typed words for months, but being able to see their faces, to me, was one of the blessings that I've had, is just, being able to associate that voice with the face. But all of the girls were just so thankful, just thankful for the opportunity, thankful for Nasir, referred to Nasir as father, kept referring to me as mom. And I couldn't be more privileged to be considered even in that category, because I feel like, to me, they are the ones that are doing all the work and are doing all the amazing things, and we're just here to kind of witness their journey. I did not write down quotes, but I have some that are like logged in my heart and my brain of just how sincere they all are. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Something else that we asked during the application, we asked, give an example of when you have given back to your community. A lot of them tell us what they have done so far, but then when we interviewed them last year, we had to interview the 2026 cohort. A few, at least three major quotes that I recorded with myself from the interview is, some of them wants to be, for example, a researcher in NASA, and that's an aspiration that we have to work to rekindle and flourish. And another student said, I want to be, this is a quote, and I quoted, I want to be a journalist and become the voice of the voiceless. So these are the girls that are understanding the depth of the challenges that they're facing, and how harshly they are being silenced. And that's why she wants to pursue journalism and be the voice of the voiceless. Another one said she wanted to be a medical doctor and serve her community. That carries on. People would come back to me and tell me, Nasir, you would get these girls out of Afghanistan for their higher education, and that's a brain drain. That's not. From day one, when we interview them, we tell them, look, we all have a commitment to Afghanistan. We will have to give back to that country whenever the time comes. But for now, this is the plan. Finish your high school, get your diploma, get to a higher education institution globally, pursue your dreams. And then when the time comes, we'll decide on how to give back to Afghanistan. Maybe the situation gets better and we'll all go back and serve the country, like I did in 2018. I was here in the US between 2016 and 18, but I went back very hurriedly to go back and help my country. That determination is over there. As for the next steps, like I said, we're committed to support 30 girls annually between 2026 through 2029. B, we're formalizing our higher education university admission for these girls so they can get to colleges globally. Like I said, I have written and I have asked friends from Israel to Georgia, and the country Georgia, in Europe, to Canada, Australia, everywhere else, to make sure these girls can obtain a higher education admission and can pursue their dreams. And we'll do more. And of course, my vision for this organization is, currently, you all know there are 270 million school-aged boys and girls out of school globally, and girls are close to 50% of them. If the situation improves in Afghanistan and if the girls are allowed to go back to school and pursue their dreams, I would be more than honored and humbled to spread this, to expand this work globally to other populations that are out of school, be it refugees or other populations affected by crisis, natural or man-made.
Okay, thank you very
Man-made.
much.
Yeah.
Punya.
Well, I honestly, I have no words. Thank you, all three of you, for what you do, the work that you facilitate, the critical work that you do, and thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your work and the stories and the inspirational stories of the girls who you are working for and with. And that's all. Just thank you and gratitude for that, and really appreciative. I was, in fact, my daughter just texted me a little while ago. Like she wanted, I think, talk on the phone, and I said no, I'm doing Silver Lining, and I said I'm right now speaking with some amazing people working with girls in Afghanistan, and so and she was like, oh, that's awesome. I said yes, it is, and this is an episode you must listen to. So again, thank you so much for all that you do and for coming on the show today. Next week, at our usual time, noon Eastern, we will have a shift of topic. We will have two friends of mine who have recently written a book. This is Stephanie Budhai and Mary Heath, who have just written a book called Critical AI in K-12 Classrooms. And what I love about the subtitle is The Practical Guide for Cultivating Justice and Joy. And I love the juxtaposition of those two words. And I think I think that may be a theme that carries over from this episode to the next one as well, because I see both those elements in the conversation that we had this morning. They just published this book. In fact, it is sitting right here on my desk. Marie has been on the show previously. I think this is Stephanie's first time coming on the show. Looking forward to that conversation, noon Eastern on 22nd Saturday. Thank you again very much. That's a wrap.